Welcome, it is Mitch. I'm on YouTube. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel as we try to build it up, nearing 200 subscribers. This is the second part of the video. I just split it into two. Packers training camp observations, talking offense, and now defensive side of the ball. I feel like can't really start anywhere else on the defense if we're going from an individual perspective than Nate Hobbs. It's a new face as part of the equation for Green Bay. Cornerback, versatility, can play in the slot, can play on the boundary, brought over from the Las Vegas Raiders. And to say Nate Hobbs is making headlines already in training camp would be a gross understatement. I'll be honest, I was irritated with the hit on Marshawn Lloyd, like seeing it live. Like, it was one of those hits that you go low on your own guy, he limps off the field, doesn't return to practice. We find out it's a groin injury. Goody says the injury occurred right before the hip when he planted his foot in the ground. You don't know if Goody's just saying that for the optics to kind of take a little bit of the attention and the pressure off of Nate Hobbs, because a lot of people were upset about it. He had a couple of hits on Wicks, or just like over-aggressive plays on Wicks, kind of decking him to the ground when the team wasn't even in pads. At the first part of training camp, Matt LaFleur having to say, he needs to tone it down. And I was irritated with the Lloyd hit, but then I kind of came around to it, and you just hope Marshawn Lloyd's okay. I think Josh Jacobs coming out and saying that Marshawn Lloyd will be all right and he's not going to miss much time, is how Jacobs phrased it, helped me kind of turn the page and then realize that Nate Hobbs is a guy who, if you're a Packers fan, you'll love him once the regular season starts. You will love Nate Hobbs being a Green Bay Packer once the regular season starts. For right now, you're kind of just walking on eggshells a little bit, hoping that there's no more friendly fire, that subsides and goes away. And I think the first time it's like, oh, okay, with Wicks, and your head coach says tone it down a little bit. And then the second time with Lloyd, it's like, all right, I actually do kind of need to chill out. But I've always been of the belief 100% of the time, you'd rather have to tell someone as a head coach to a player, you'd rather have to tell someone, hey, tone it down just a little bit than, man, fire it up. Like, we got to get you going. Like, get fired up. Let's go. Like, I'd rather have to, if I were a head coach, approach the player about, man, we love the aggressiveness, the tenacity, the energy, all of that. But for training camp, going against your own guys, with pads, without pads, just bring it down just a little bit, instead of, man, this guy looks lethargic, lackadaisical, disinterested, whatever descriptor you want to use, and you have to go and try to fire that player up. So from that perspective, you like having a Nate Hobbs on your team. You like having a Nate Hobbs in your corner. When the regular season starts, he strikes me as, I'm trying to think of another comparison. I don't know why this name popped into my mind. I'm not comparing the talent and the athleticism between the two, but Nate Hobbs sort of reminds me of Patrick Beverley in the NBA, where Patrick Beverley, he wasn't in the NBA last year, but a bit of an irritant. And Beverley was always one of those guys where if he's on your team, you love him, and he's going to jaw and he's going to talk, and he might say some outlandish things from time to time. And if he's on your team, you love it. If he's not on your team, you can't stand the guy. To me, Nate Hobbs might end up being that guy. Like, Packer fans are going to love having Nate Hobbs in the green and gold. But you know who isn't going to like it? Detroit. The players, the fans, the coaches. Chicago. The players, the fans, the coaches. Minnesota, the players, the fans, the coaches. You see each of them twice. Your division rivals. I would feel very, very confident saying there will come a point, there will be a sequence, there will be a play, there will be something that comes about in at least one of those division games, and I would feel comfortable saying two, against Detroit, Chicago, Minnesota, where Vikings fans, Bears fans, Lions fans, one of the fan bases or two, take to social media and talk about how they can't stand Nate Hobbs. Get in the face of a player, clapping, jawing, saying something, maybe a hit that occurs a little too late out of bounds, but maybe there's not a flag. Nate Hobbs is, you'll love him once the regular season starts. For now, you kind of just, like, if you see a play coming in his direction, you kind of cringe a little bit and just hope, because he is an Energizer bunny. He just brings it. It's like he has one level, and it is, the foot pushing the pedal into the floor. And so LaFleur having to tell him, tone it down a little bit. I don't mind that from the head coach. I get it. You don't want to see injuries. You don't want to be, getting overly physical with your own teammates when they're not even wearing pads, like we saw with Wicks on 2 plays, and Wicks had to gingerly make his way out the field. You'll love Nate Hobbs once the regular season starts. And I've come around on that thought and that theory because I was just irritated, kind of pissed after the hit on Lloyd because it was low, and it's like, why are we doing that to our own guy in training camp? But once the regular season starts, and this defense too, like, you can't have enough dogs. And whether fair or unfair, I do believe one of the theories that has been thrown about the last few years, maybe it's 5, 6, 7, 8, I don't know, with the Packers defense is a lot of people think the Packers defense is soft or they're not as aggressive as they need to be. You bring in a guy like Nate Hobbs that instantly can turn that around, and you pair him at corner with another pit bull in Keyshawn Nixon. Those are two guys who don't lack confidence, who talk the talk, walk the walk. They aren't afraid to get in the face of the opposition. Nate Hobbs and Keyshawn Nixon, whoever gets matched up against, Justin Jefferson, DJ Moore, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, Jordan Addison, Roma Dunze, they're not going to be intimidated. They're not going to be captured by that spotlight. They're going to believe they win that battle every single time. Will they? No, they're not going to win. Nobody wins the battle with Justin Jefferson every single time. No one wins the battle with Amon-Ra St. Brown every single time. They're going to believe they can, though, because Nate Hobbs and Keyshawn Nixon play with an abundant amount of confidence and belief, and I think that can have a domino effect on the rest of the defense. Does Green Bay have a bona fide superstar number 1 cornerback like Jair Alexander was when he was healthy? No, I don't think they do, but I think they have 2 tenacious, ferocious irritants in Keyshawn Nixon and Nate Hobbs. And with Hobbs so far in training camp, a lot of headlines, maybe not for the greatest of reasons, right? Some friendly fire. Once the regular season starts, you and I and all Packer fans will love that Nate Hobbs is in green and gold. I'm actually going to stick with the secondary, too. Mitch, I'm on YouTube. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Training camp observations for the Packers. Did one video on the offense, now the defense. Sticking at cornerback, Kalen King. Looks different. He stayed in Green Bay this summer to rehab his wrist injury. He's playing like someone... And again, I'm just going off the training camp practices I've been to in person. But Kalen King is playing like someone who knows there's a spot on the depth chart to snatch. Like, we're all aware of it, right? Like, Green Bay has Nixon, Hobbs, Carrington Valentine. That's your top 3 cornerbacks, right, on the depth chart. Who's going to be the 4th? Who's going to be the 5th? Are they going to keep 5 cornerbacks? Like, we'll see how that pans out. But those 4 and 5 spots on the depth chart at cornerback are up for grabs. And I'm not including Javon Bullard, who can play the slot. I still categorize him as a safety. But certainly playing the slot and Bullard, that helps, and that's another puzzle piece. But for the true cornerbacks, Kalen King, one of them, playing like someone who, with urgency, I would say, like he's making plays, PBUs, flying around, and I know some of these feel like lazy descriptors and some of the terminology is like what you hear with a lot of training camp. But again, the eye test that I see with Kalen King is like he knows there's a spot on the depth chart that is open, and he is trying to claim it. There might be 2 spots, right, for 2 guys to fill that void. And he's playing like he knows it. Matt LaFleur said the other day, and I thought it was really, really cool of him to note this about Kalen King. He said Kalen King will throw his body around and shows a ton of toughness despite his smaller frame. And he said he thought that Kalen King stacked 3 impressive days in a row, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, at training camp. And you got to keep in mind, this was a guy in Kalen King who could end up being a hidden gem for, a couple of reasons. But the one I always look at, his second to last year at Penn State, if you go back and look at mock drafts and you look at draft profiles that were made, Kalen King, by almost everyone's account, was a 1st or 2nd round draft pick. He was incredible, a second to last year with the Nittany Lions in the Big Ten at Penn State. Opted to come back for another year, looked different in a not great way, like wasn't nearly as effective at times, just sticking with receivers, all of that. Took a step back, and he ends up falling to the 7th round, and that's a big hit to your draft stock. 1 year, first, second round. Everyone's like at least a lock to go in the second round at the absolute latest. Comes back for another year of college. Don't blame him for that. World of NIL, can make a lot of money. Sure. Comes back, draft stock takes a hit. Doesn't have nearly as productive as a season in his final year in Happy Valley. Goes into the draft, falls to the 7th round. And I remember the first thing they were bringing up on TV is, hey, this was a guy who last year, if he would have left, would have been a first or second round pick. Like, that potential is there. That talent is there with Kalen King. And I just, when you're seeing it in person, and then I always like, after these practices, like, okay, I see it one way. What are some other reporters, content creators, people who cover the Packers, what are they saying about it? And so when I'm scrolling through articles and I'm scrolling through posts on Twitter, I'm seeing the same thing. Like a lot of, hey, Kalen King with an impressive PBU. Kalen King all over this play on defense. Like, okay, it just kind of like helps me reaffirm, like, okay, these other guys and gals are seeing what I'm seeing with Kalen King. And you hope, Matt LaFleur mentioned he stacked 3 good days in a row, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday at training camp, off day Wednesday, and then you're back at it Thursday. And you hope he can just keep stacking those days, those productive days, because there are opportunities at cornerback on the back end of the depth chart. And you're talking about, Kamal Haddon, you're talking about Kalen King, you're talking about the rookie 7th rounder, Micah Robinson, you're talking about Jonathan Baldwin, maybe a safety corner hybrid who the Packers guaranteed a pretty penny to, like almost like an unprecedented amount for the Packers to hand over to an undrafted free agent. Like, there's at least 1, potentially 2 spots there at corner for someone to grab a hold of. And so far, I mean, Kalen King, he's looked the part. Like, I like phrasing it as he's playing as though he's not playing in a way where I'm like, man, he's just trying to cling on to a roster spot. And this is a guy who spent most of his rookie season on the practice squad. And so he is trying, in essence, to just claim a roster spot. But it feels like he's playing for, like, I'm playing for this spot that is definitely open. It's not just a spot. Like, hey, I hope, fingers crossed, to be one of the final 53 on the 53-man roster. Like, he is playing in a way where it's like he knows there's a gap. He knows there's a void. He knows there's a spot that, he fits the criteria for. Now he's got to take advantage of it. So I like what I've seen from Kalen King. Mitch, I'm on YouTube. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Talking about the training camp observations for the Packers on defense. This is a pretty polarizing name to bring up, I think. Lucas Van Ness. There's a pep in his step. I'd say he's looked really good against the run. He blew up like it was like an end around to Romeo Dobbs, and he kind of just like tossed Dobbs to the ground. I love Romeo Dobbs. I think we all love us some Romeo Dobbs. There was another play where he hit the gap, got to Josh Jacobs. Against the run, Lucas Van Ness has looked pretty good. 1v1 drills between the O-line and D-line, he's looked good. He had some reps against Jordan Morgan, where Lucas Van Ness looked superior to the second-year player out of Arizona, second-year offensive lineman. So, again, like I said in my first video on offense, Matthew Golden has been so sensational that it's like, holy crap. Like, you start letting your mind wander to this could be a true number 1 wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers. This year, maybe not. Again, there's a lot of different parts that the Packers have to keep happy. I keep using the terminology, there's a lot of mouths to feed on offense. And so Matthew Golden maybe this year won't initially burst onto the scene as a true number 1 wide receiver and chew up, like the most targets, receptions, yards, all that stuff. But what you've seen in training camp so far, what we've seen in training camp so far, it's like, man, Matthew Golden, holy crap, looks the part. Lucas Van Ness has looked really good, but I remind myself, like I do with Golden, it is training camp, it is training camp, it is training camp. And with Van Ness, I want to see it translate to the regular season. I want to see it translate to the regular season on a consistent basis. But he's looked damn good in training camp. A lot of plays where, the defense is making a play and you're like, oh, Lucas Van Ness is there, or Lucas Van Ness was involved. And so hearing his name a lot is good. He's in a very, very critical year. Put the Packers part aside for a second. This is a very critical year for the career of Lucas Van Ness. Former first-round pick. What was he, 13th overall a couple of years ago? Very, very underwhelming first 2 seasons. He knows it. You know it. I know it. The coaches know it. Everyone knows it. big third year for Lucas Van Ness. He's going to be a starter. He's going to be on the opposite side of Rashawn Gary. They're going to be on the opposite sides of the defensive front for Green Bay. Preston Smith's gone, traded at the deadline to Pittsburgh last year. You have some depth that's interesting. The two rookies, right? Baron Sorrell and Colin Oliver, who Colin Oliver's still dealing with lingering injury. Haven't seen him. And then you have some guys who have been around in Kingsley Enagbari and Bretton Cox Jr. I have lobbied for Green Bay to keep 6 defensive ends, which I know is a bigger number. Ideally, I think maybe 4 or 5, but I have lobbied for them to keep Gary, Van Ness, Enagbari, Cox, and the two rookies, Sorrell and Oliver, under the premise of we still don't know about Lucas Van Ness. And if Lucas Van Ness underwhelms again this year, you're going to want multiple options to pivot to. You're not going to want to cut, Enagbari or Bretton Cox Jr. and be like, oh, let's just pivot to one of them and hope that it works out, right? You're going to want to have both at your disposal. You're going to want to have both rookies, pending the health of Colin Oliver, at your disposal. It is a big, big year for the career of Lucas Van Ness. Pep in his step. I'll just say that. Pep in his step so far at training camp. Sticking with the defensive front, but we're going to scoot it inside. Here's a fascinating dude. Nazir Stackhouse, undrafted, out of Georgia. His teammate who plays the same position, Warren Brinson, was drafted by the Packers in the back end of the draft in April. Nazir Stackhouse went undrafted. This guy, he's blowing up running plays. He's blowing up running lanes. He's an absolute unit. He's showing, for a defensive tackle to show like pop plays, like plays that pop up on the radar, it doesn't happen too often, right? Like TJ Slayton, throughout his time in Green Bay, flew under the radar just because of his role. Like his role was basically like clog up some running lanes. We don't expect you to be a guy who gets 8-9 sacks a year and a bunch of quarterback hits and a bunch of TFLs. Like his main job was clog up some running lanes, get some pressure on the quarterback here and there, things of that nature. For a guy like Nazir Stackhouse, who went undrafted, I think has a realistic shot to make the 53-man roster with what we've seen so far. And again, this dude is a unit. He is a unit. He's a big boy. For him to be showing and having pop plays, like things that aren't just like, oh, good job of, messing up the offensive line there and clogging up a running lane. Like he's having those pop plays here and there that stand out and ruin what the offense is trying to do. I love what I see from Nazir Stackhouse. Can he... you talk about Kalen King and LaFleur saying stacking days. Can Nazir Stackhouse, with his reps, with his opportunities that he's getting, it's not going to be with the first team too often, if at all, right? Can he stack some good days together with the opportunities he's presented? So far, so good. Tyron Hopper, linebacker taken. I'm going to look this up, but I believe, was Hopper a third rounder last year? And we didn't hear much from Tyron Hopper in his rookie season. Hopper was a third rounder last year, 91st overall, 3 picks after Green Bay took Marshawn Lloyd at 88. So Tyron Hopper, rookie last year, linebacker out of Missouri, didn't hear much about him. Inside linebacker, he's a guy so far at training camp. LaFleur has already said he took a step in the right direction, talking about Tyron Hopper. He's just diagnosing what's happening in front of him with, I would say, just incredible instinctual play. I probably can't say that 5 times fast, but incredible instinctual play from Tyron Hopper so far. He has had a couple of those plays that pop up like a Kalen King. I say, when I go to these training camp practices, my eyes, my mind, they're telling me one thing, and then it's like, can I get some confirmation from other people who are seeing the same thing? Are they seeing it the same way or similarly to what I'm seeing? And I got that confirmation with Kalen King when I'm seeing other reporters write about or tweet about, like, holy crap, Kalen King all over this play. Kalen King, great PB unit. It's like, okay, yeah. And I had that same thought with Tyron Hopper, where it's like, man, Hopper's here, he's there, he's everywhere, breaking up a pass, near interception, things of that nature. And I'm like, am I seeing it one way? Maybe I'm just focusing in on him too much instead of looking at the whole picture. But then again, I go back, look at social media articles, and Tyron Hopper's being mentioned. Like, hey, Hopper looked pretty good so far in training camp. So inside linebacker is going to be super fascinating for Green Bay because Quay Walker and Edgerrin Cooper are going to be your 2 starters. And after that, right, they re-sign Isaiah McDuffie. You have Isaiah Simmons, who I'm assuming they want to keep at inside linebacker. They had mentioned they don't want Green Bay loves versatilities, but they think Simmons can be best used if it's just at one position that he can really focus on and try to just like really hone his craft at one position. So he's at inside linebacker. And then you have a guy like Tyron Hopper, who easy to forget about, but man, he was a 3rd-round pick. Like, that's not a throwaway. That's not a, hey, take a flyer on a guy in round 3. You take a guy in round 3, typically it's like we expect this guy to be a contributor at some point in time. And for Tyron Hopper, it's all of a sudden a packed inside linebacker room, but he's looked stout. He's looked solid in training camp. Again, a guy who, the best way I describe how Hopper has looked, because what did I say? Incredible instinctual play. Just like watching him diagnose what the offense is doing in front of him, he just looks confident doing it. So I like that from Hopper. And the last thing I want to mention for the defense, they want to force 1 million fumbles. They are punching away at the pigskin in training camp. During plays, slightly after plays, they are trying to force fumbles left and right. Was it Hafley? Someone on the defense, I think it was Hafley, the defensive coordinator, said that they want to lead the league in fumbles, forced fumbles. Maybe it was fumble recoveries. They're going for it. Like, they're going for the pigskin. And, man, sight for sore eyes, seeing a Packers defense that's playing with an edge, playing with an aggression, and has some of those pit bulls that I mentioned, some of those dogs, Keyshawn Nixon, Nate Hobbs at cornerback. Love what I'm seeing from Nazir Stackhouse, Tyron Hopper. You got the veterans, right? You have Xavier McKinney in his 2nd year with the Packers, but he's a veteran at this point. You have Kenny Clark, who really is a veteran. Rashawn Gary, veteran presence, veteran leadership, impact player, hoping he can maybe peel back some layers to his game in year 2 in Hafley's system. So I would say, and maybe this is pretty typical for training camp, defense looks ahead of the offense, and if you want some of those under-the-radar names that I would say there's 2 that are like battling for a 53-man roster spot, not at the same position, but 2 guys in general I'm saying that are battling for a 53 spot. Kalen King looked pretty good. Nazir Stackhouse has looked pretty good. And then a guy who you would assume, comfortably make the 53-man roster, but there's going to be a lot of zigzagging to try to carve out a role. Tyron Hopper has looked pretty good in training camp. Again, this is early portions. You can take it with a grain of salt. These are just observations from early on in training camp, offense and defense for the Packers. But, man, this defense is playing with an edge. Love seeing it. Mitch, I'm on YouTube. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Nearing 200. Love to hit that mark soon. We'll see you next time.